Hello everyone. Today I'm coming to you with a new video where I am going to discuss some key roles that player characters can fit into in a typical tabletop role-playing game. This stemmed from me this morning considering creating another character for an upcoming campaign when I already had one. I saw him as a frontliner character that would get in the face of the enemy and get up close and personal. But I was considering crafting another character that would fit into another role, but I wasn't sure where to go. And so I decided to kind of categorize a lot of the classes and consider what are the most important roles that a party would need. The intent of this is not to tell you what classes have to play what certain ways. It's so that everybody at the table can have a character that can excel in one specific area and they can have the spotlight for their own moments. The following describes what I believe to be the most important roles that should be filled in a well-rounded adventuring party. This assumes a party of 4 player characters, because many adventures are designed with that in mind. If a group has more or less, individuals can fill the same role, or individuals can fill multiple roles to a lesser extent. Keep in mind that these are not necessary for the enjoyment of the game. You can have parties that are missing some roles, and that discrepancy can be a fun challenge to overcome. But sometimes it can be very frustrating when adventures have a strict narrative. Adventure Path player guides can be particularly useful in telling you what might be useful in a given adventure. The following are the 4 key suggested roles that I think are the most important to include in any party. But there are options out there that can be flexible, which includes archetypes. There are too many variables to consider, but I will use their vanilla class structure to dictate what role I think they would typically fill. The core classes are relatively simple to define, base classes more complex, and hybrid classes even more so. I used Pathfinder 1st Edition as a framework because that was what I was working with this morning. So keep that in mind when you're considering these classes that I describe within these roles, but these can also be substituted for other role-playing games, specifically Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. The Frontliner. The Frontliner is a player character that is able to get up close and personal with enemies and situations and survive the punishment. Since tabletop games typically have very limited interactions with generating threat, as we understand it from video games, a Frontliner needs to have some sort of skills and abilities that makes them difficult to ignore. If a PC is difficult to hit but does not deal a lot of damage, monsters will typically just ignore them. A Frontliner needs a blend of survivability and damage dealing capabilities. A frontliner might be a barbarian, a fighter, a paladin, a cavalier, a blood rager, a brawler, a skald, or a war priest, typically. The damage dealer is a player character that outputs significant damage on their own or in conjunction with other party members. They typically have abilities that increase their own damage through some means involved with their class. However, they are generally less survivable than a frontliner, so they rely on positioning and movement in order to survive. The damage dealer picks the correct time to strike, because if they are wrong, it could prove fatal. They also typically possess some utility skills to use outside of combat, and maybe 1 or 2 get-out-of-jail-free cards to use in dire circumstances. Some classes that excel in this role are the monk, the ranger, the rogue, the alchemist, the gunslinger, the magus, the shifter, the hunter, the investigator, the slayer, and the swashbuckler. Next up is the Arcane Expert. The Arcane Expert possesses significant knowledge or skills, especially ones involving magic and spellcasting. They can generally deal out damage, but also possess significant flexibility in the rest of their kit due to their spell selection or ability to manipulate the arcane in one way or another. Generally, this involves controlling areas of the battlefield, buffing allies, and debuffing enemies to make them easier to take down for your frontliners and damage dealers. They are also capable of dealing with threats that are magical in nature that the other roles are unable to deal with. You could find an arcane expert in a bard, a sorcerer, a warlock in 5th edition, the wizard, the summoner, a witch, or an arcanist. Finally, the last of the key 4 roles is the Divine Adept. The Divine Adept is an individual that is attuned to a specific deity or cause and draws power from that source. They possess a unique and different repertoire of spells that typically allow them to provide support through the divine or through nature. They are flexible, similar to Arcane Experts, but with a different calling. Uniquely, they can generally deal with undead much more easily than other roles, and can also assist their allies to this end. Their spells generally improve their allies' ability to deal damage, and also their ability to recover from damage. From the divine domains they select, Divine Adepts are granted unique minor and major powers that are specific to the deity or cause they dedicate themselves to. Divine Adepts can include clerics, druids, inquisitors, oracles, and the shaman. Should a party have more than 4 characters in it, there are additional roles that can be filled in that will assist in niche areas of a campaign, though these roles might not be necessary in all campaigns depending on the adventure and where it takes place. First up is the Face. The Face is a character that shines primarily in social situations. Oftentimes, it is better to talk and avoid a fight than to launch into a potentially deadly situation. The Face can navigate these tumultuous waters with ease. Generally, they have high charisma and skills to supplement that, or abilities and spells that allow them to determine the intention of other creatures and entities outside of combat. The Face can influence social scenarios to end favorably for them and the party, as well as learn new information that an uncharismatic individual would not be able to. Overlapping some of our previous classes, a good Face might be a bard, a cleric, a sorcerer, a warlock in 5th edition, an inquisitor, an oracle, a blood rager, an investigator, or a skald. Finally, there is the Survivalist. The Survivalist is an individual that is in tune with the natural and unnatural world, and is capable of navigating treacherous terrain. They will generally have knowledge of the lands that they inhabit, as well as the denizens of those lands, whether on the material plane or other realms of reality. Akin to the Face, the Survivalist can aid in the avoidance of troubling encounters by traversing through safer areas or by finding alternate routes with their unique knowledge. They can also be effective at seeking out hidden locations that other roles would otherwise have significant difficulty in finding. You might find a Survivalist in a druid, a ranger, an oracle, a shifter, a hunter, or a slayer. I hope you have found this video informative and entertaining, and hopefully it has given you a new perspective on how to see classes and how they fit into an adventuring party. Remember, this is all just my opinion, and it is a very loose categorization of classes. Especially with new content that is coming out for 5th edition, there is an immense amount of flexibility available now, and a lot of different characters can fit within and without each of these roles. These are just meant to be a guideline as to how you might put together an adventuring party to be well-rounded for any adventure or campaign you might find yourself in. So with that, let me know what you think about my decisions and the roles I have decided on in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Be sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you would like to see more content from the Silver Dragon Academy. Thank you and have a wonderful day.